So this month, I want to talk about how death is about life, and then following up on that, how hospice is really about life. So we're going to continue to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying, so we die better at end of life, and hopefully live a really good one till we get there. So let's get started. I'm going to do this kind of in two parts, at least. The first part, I'm going to talk about, why death is so much about life, and then I want to talk about hospice and hospice being about life. Talk about hospice care, how it works, the nuts and bolts, all that kind of stuff, but really how it's about life. So for death being about life, I always like to remind people, I know I imagine for you, it's always scary to talk about death, think about death. Death is naturally a very fearful thing for us, you know, animalistic type of physical beings that we are biologically, because we are programmed neurologically to fear death. This is how we've survived, so long, because we're programmed to avoid things that cause any kind of threat to our body, to our lives. And we are driven to reproduce, we're driven to eat, to drink every few hours, whatever it is. All of that for survival, all of that to keep living and survive and continue to continue the next generation. So anyway, death is naturally a really scary thing for us. This is good. I always say you are super healthy if you're afraid of death. Now, I hope to kind of quell that fear a little bit, because the more we can expose our systems, our nervous systems, and educate ourselves about death and dying, how it can look, the fact that you have some agency over it, all this kind of stuff, then it can be less scary. And also, there's also opportunity to sit with your fear. Okay, but this is another thing. But I want to talk about how death is about life. So I always like to do this little exercise where, just for a moment, pretend that life as it is now today, and you find out today that you are never going to die. Death is never, ever going to be a part of your life, and those around you. So this point on, nothing's going, you're not going to die, and the people you know are not going to die. So I just want you to think about what that would look like. We already have trouble assigning reverence for things as it is and appreciating the moments and all that kind of stuff. Can you imagine if we knew there was never an end, just how crazy things would be? I mean, talk about not worrying about, I don't care about them. I'll circle back in about the next 100 years or so. I mean, they're going to be here the whole time. So am I. We're not going anywhere. But, even with death not being in the forefront, we already, even with death being in the forefront, we know that death is going to happen. We are still not great at, really trying to relish moments or trying to make meaning out of certain things, whatever it is. And that's natural, again, because, of the world in which we live and the responsibilities we have. And don't worry, I'm not sitting up here saying I relish every single moment. No, I think we can choose. And sometimes you have to just get through a moment to get through it. And that's okay. And I talk about this in my book too. But anyway, and I mentioned my book just because for those who've read it or for those who are getting it, just letting you know I touch on these things. So if you imagine this life without any death, I mean, everything becomes diluted. The meaning, the memories, everything is just diluted into this one long, super long reel that you just don't have the attention span for. So, imagine life without death. When you bring death into the picture, that's when you assign value to things. You assign values to your time, to the time that you have with other people, your loved ones, your animals, the nature, whatever it is, experiences. And so death really does bring the life into life, I think, because we know that it's so limited. We know that there's an expiration date. We know that things will end. There's a finality. Now, when we talk about serious illness and death, I'm sorry, serious illness and death, we almost feel like, we don't really want to even talk about death either, because we kind of feel like, oh, if things are kind of going okay and we're not really dealing with serious illness and death, we feel like death is just like way down the line. We don't even have to really deal with it and pretend that it's not there. So I want us to, instead of just focusing on the fear, knowing and acknowledging that the fear of death is very well and healthy for you to have. And there's no judgment from me, and there shouldn't be from anywhere else, really. But fear is, again, really healthy and really normal, really natural to have. But you have to forgive me. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little. But death will and death does really help us to, like I said, we assign meaning to things. It grounds us. It's very sobering because we realize that everything has a finality. Our relationships, our careers, our roles in life, the people, etc. And this is where we bring the meaning to it. So, this is why I really like to talk about how death is always about life, because it really is. Without death, we would have very little reverence for anything. And with it, we do hold reverence. We do hold this respect and this deep, wow, realization that, oh my gosh, my cat who's sitting on the counter again may not be there the next time, by this year when I look over there or something. Or my loved one, my spouse who's driving me crazy today. If they weren't here, it would be devastating. My retirement now, that's coming. I feel like I've lost my identity. Um, but this is my time to also really enjoy my time not working and do the things that I really love. So there's all these things. And again, this is not to brush off any problems, any serious issues, things like this. In fact, it really is to bring the most important, meaningful parts to the forefront for you to really have an opportunity to have some agency over that, which brings me, and it's going to bring me into this next part where we talk about hospice. So I'm just curious if you thought about and you played this little exercise with me and pretended that, oh, all of a sudden we heard that nobody's going to die, the people that you like and the people that you don't like, for example. Wow, what do you think would happen? Like, how do you think this world would be? What do you think life would be like? Um, I just think it would be absolutely crazy. Um, so I'm curious to see what you think. All right, more to come in the next episode. And yeah, this is about life. This is about your life. So death is about your life. So yeah, live it, do all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you just have to, again, I don't say make the most of every moment. I think that is way too much pressure. But make most of the moments that you can make out of, and bring meaning into those moments when you can. And I always say, not just celebrating other people and like, with these celebrity tributes that come like after somebody dies and everyone's like, oh, and they're throwing all these beautiful posts up and they're really eloquent and articulate. Say the stuff now, do the stuff now, or maybe, soon. But also do this for yourself and really find a way to honor yourself. It doesn't have to be big and loud or anything like that, but in your own intentional way, even if it's just 5 minutes, when you are taking a shower and putting some soap on and washing the day off for you, for example, and that intentionality that you take to take care of yourself. When you even drink a glass of water and have the opportunity to have, say, clean water, all these things. And this is the other thing I always kind of, I didn't write this in my book, but I always kind of think it's interesting that it is truly, even though it is part of life, it is a privilege that we can explore these concepts and get into the philosophical thought and things like that. Um, because usually we're able to explore those things when we're not fighting for food and shelter or things like this, where so many parts of the world are doing right now and dealing with. So that's another thing that I always really try to remember too. Anyway, I love you, thinking about you, and hope to talk to you soon. Let me know if you have any questions, and let's continue these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better end of life. I'll talk to you soon.